From the moment the first light spills across the waters of Puget Sound, Washington, an entire industry begins to move. Here, in one of America's most iconic maritime regions, millions of fish glide beneath the surface, raised in enormous floating cages anchored deep in the protected bays. Over the course of a single day, they will be transferred from these offshore farms onto specialized well boats, brought to shore for precise processing, loaded into state-of-the-art refrigerated trucks, and sent racing toward markets and restaurants hundreds of miles away. This is the lifeline of a billion-dollar industry, an unbroken chain of skill, speed, and precision that turns the cold waters of the Pacific Northwest into fresh seafood on the tables of cities across the country. Before we dive into this journey from sea to city, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Every week, we take you inside the world's most fascinating industries, where timing, teamwork, and technology decide success. Your subscription is the anchor that keeps these stories coming. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's ahead. The day starts miles offshore, where the floating cages rise and fall gently with the rhythm of the tide. Each structure is the size of a football field, built to withstand storms, currents, and the relentless demands of the harvest cycle. Inside the mesh walls, shimmering schools of salmon swirl in perfect synchrony, their movements as fluid as the water itself. For months, sometimes years, these fish have been cared for by crews who know every nuance of their behavior. They've been fed with precision, monitored with underwater cameras, and tested to ensure they are at peak health for harvest. Now, that moment has arrived, and every step that follows has been timed to the minute. A well boat approaches slowly, its low diesel growl breaking the morning stillness. This vessel is a marvel of engineering, designed not to catch fish, but to carry them alive. Giant hoses are lowered into the cages, and the pumping begins. Seawater rushes through the pipes, carrying the fish gently into the boat's massive onboard tanks. Here, oxygen levels, salinity, and water temperature are constantly adjusted to keep conditions perfect. Crew members in waterproof gear move quickly, checking gauges, logging readings, and making sure the density in each tank is just right. Every choice matters. If the fish become stressed, quality drops, and with it, the price they will fetch in the market. The voyage to shore can take hours, depending on the farm's location and the weather. Along the way, the captain and crew maintain a constant watch, using a mix of experience and technology to safeguard their cargo. In the Pacific Northwest, the waters can shift from calm to choppy in minutes, but the well boats are built for stability, ensuring the fish arrive in the same condition they left the cages: strong, firm, and ready for processing. At the dock, the pace shifts into overdrive. Cranes swing into position, lifting insulated containers from the boat and lowering them onto waiting platforms. Inside the processing facility just steps away, workers move with synchronized efficiency. Each fish is stunned, bled, cleaned, and chilled in a matter of minutes. The grading process begins immediately, measuring size, checking for imperfections, and separating top-quality fish destined for fine dining from those heading to large-scale distribution. By the time they leave the building, each salmon is packed in ice, its temperature locked just above freezing. Outside, refrigerated trucks are already lined up, engines idling, cooling units humming steadily. These trucks are the final link between the ocean and the plate, and their role is as critical as the farming itself. The interior is kept at a constant temperature, monitored by digital sensors that alert drivers to even the slightest variation. Routes are carefully planned to minimize travel time, weaving through interstate highways and city streets to reach distribution hubs in record speed. Some loads will end up in Seattle's bustling seafood markets before the afternoon crowd arrives. Others will travel down the coast to Portland or cross into other states where Pacific Northwest salmon commands a premium price. Every day, this cycle repeats: farms to boats, boats to docks, docks to trucks, trucks to cities. Behind each step is a network of skilled workers, cutting-edge equipment, and precise logistics that together feed millions of people and fuel a billion-dollar economy. It's a process where the stakes are as high as the value of the cargo, and where success depends on timing measured in minutes, not hours. The first trucks roll out of the dockyard while the air is still heavy with morning mist. Their drivers, seasoned veterans of the seafood trade, know that the race has already begun. Each refrigerated trailer carries thousands of pounds of salmon, neatly packed in insulated crates, the temperature inside hovering just above freezing. As the convoy pulls onto the highway, the city skyline fades in the rearview mirror, replaced by winding roads that cut through evergreen forests and over steel bridges spanning the inlets of Puget Sound. These routes are more than just lines on a map. They are lifelines that connect the fishermen, farmers, and processors to the bustling markets that demand their catch. Inside the cab of the lead truck, the driver keeps a watchful eye on a small digital display mounted near the dashboard. It shows the temperature of the cargo hold, updated in real time by sensors deep within the load. If the temperature creeps up even a single degree, alerts flash on the screen. In this business, quality is measured not only by taste, but by precision, and a delay of minutes can mean the difference between a top-dollar sale and a costly rejection. Alongside the temperature monitor, a GPS system plots the most efficient route, factoring in traffic, weather, and delivery windows. Every turn, every stoplight, every mile is calculated to preserve the value of what's in the trailer. As the trucks push south toward the distribution hubs outside Seattle and Tacoma, their journey is shadowed by another layer of coordination happening miles away. In a control room at the logistics headquarters, dispatchers monitor the entire fleet, tracking each vehicle's position, speed, and cargo data. If a road closure appears on the screen, a dispatcher calls the driver directly, rerouting them before they hit the slowdown. If a mechanical issue is detected in the refrigeration system, an emergency maintenance crew is dispatched to meet the truck at a predetermined stop. This invisible safety net is the reason the system works day after day, year after year. By late morning, the first trucks arrive at a massive distribution center, a sprawling complex of loading bays, conveyor belts, and cold storage rooms large enough to swallow entire city blocks. Here, the seafood is offloaded with the same urgency that has driven the operation since the fish left their cages at dawn. Workers in insulated jackets move the crates from the truck into chilled staging areas, where they are sorted once again. Some shipments are repacked into smaller containers for direct delivery to high-end restaurants. Others are placed on pallets and wheeled into deep-freeze storage, awaiting overnight shipping to states hundreds or even thousands of miles away. Forklifts weave between rows of stacked pallets, their operators moving with a precision born of repetition. Every box is labeled with its harvest date, processing location, and temperature history, a traceable chain of information that builds trust with buyers and meets the strict demands of food safety regulators. For the salmon destined for export, the clock is even more unforgiving. These shipments will be loaded onto cargo planes at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport before the day ends, bound for markets in Tokyo, Hong Kong, and beyond. The idea that a fish swimming in Puget Sound this morning will be sliced into sashimi halfway across the world tomorrow is both astonishing and routine in this trade. Meanwhile, another set of trucks departs the distribution center, heading into the heart of the region's cities. In Seattle's Pike Place Market, where the air is thick with the scent of fresh seafood and roasted coffee, vendors wait for the day's delivery. Tourists gather around the famous fishmongers who toss salmon through the air in a practiced display of showmanship. But behind the smiles and the spectacle lies the same logistical precision that brought the fish here in pristine condition. In Portland, chefs at farm-to-table restaurants check their deliveries with a practiced eye, running fingers along the firm flesh and inspecting the clarity of the eyes before nodding approval. The journey from the floating cages to these final destinations is a feat of coordination that few industries can match. It requires the synchronization of fishermen, processors, truck drivers, dispatchers, market vendors, and chefs, each one relying on the other to play their part without hesitation. Every stage is built on trust, on the understanding that delays are not just inconvenient, they are costly. And while the end customer might simply taste the freshness and savor the flavor, those behind the scenes see the hours of labor, the miles of travel, and the countless small decisions that make it possible. As evening settles over the Pacific Northwest, the trucks that began their run before dawn return empty to the dockyards. Their work is done for the day, but the cycle continues without pause. Out on the water, while boats are already loading the next day's harvest, preparing to bring another wave of fish ashore. In the processing facilities, crews work through the night to handle the influx, their movements as precise at midnight as they were at sunrise. In the control rooms, screens glow with maps and data streams, each blinking dot representing another load of seafood on its way to market. It's a rhythm as constant as the tide, one that turns a region's natural bounty into a global commodity and keeps the lifeblood of this billion-dollar industry flowing. In the chilled cargo hold of a long-haul freight plane, the hum of the refrigeration units is constant, steady, almost hypnotic. Beneath their silver foil insulation, crates of salmon from Puget Sound are stacked with military precision, each box marked with its harvest date and temperature log. Outside, the runway glistens under the bright floodlights of Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. In just a few hours, this aircraft will touch down in Tokyo, where buyers at the world-famous Toyosu market will be waiting. There, in the pre-dawn bustle of one of the largest seafood hubs on the planet, chefs and wholesalers will examine the fish with a meticulous eye, running fingers along the firm, cold flesh before sealing deals worth thousands of dollars per crate. It's an exchange that happens every day, built on a reputation for quality so strong that Pacific Northwest salmon has become a global brand. But the journey doesn't always end in Japan. Some shipments fly to Hong Kong, where high-end hotels display them prominently on menus as a mark of prestige. Others land in Dubai, where luxury resorts pride themselves on offering the freshest seafood despite being thousands of miles from the nearest ocean. Each of these international routes has been refined over years of trial, error, and investment, balancing speed with the need to maintain perfect conditions from the moment the fish leave the water to the second they are prepared. And while the consumer might think of it simply as fresh fish, behind the scenes it is a finely tuned logistical ballet, involving customs brokers, cold storage operators, freight forwarders, and an army of handlers who ensure that the cargo never lingers unprotected for even a moment. Back home in Washington, the ripple effects of this trade are everywhere. In the small coastal towns that the inlets of Puget Sound, seafood processing plants provide steady jobs that keep local economies alive. Families have built their livelihoods on this industry for generations, fathers and mothers working on the water, sons and daughters learning the trade from an early age. The money earned from global exports flows back into the community, supporting schools, infrastructure, and small businesses. Every time a crate of salmon is sold at a foreign market, it's not just the fishermen who benefit. It's the mechanics who maintain the well boats, the truck drivers who keep the shipments moving, and the engineers who design the refrigeration systems. In recent years, technology has begun to reshape the entire process. On the water, underwater drones inspect the nets for wear and tear, reducing the risk of escapes and improving safety for the fish. Sensors installed inside the cages transmit live data on water temperature, oxygen levels, and fish activity, allowing farmers to make adjustments in real time. On board the well boats, automated filtration systems keep the water pristine, while satellite communications connect the crew to shore-based managers for constant updates. Even the trucks have evolved. Modern refrigeration units are controlled by AI-driven systems that predict temperature fluctuations and adjust power usage to maintain optimal conditions without wasting fuel. One of the most revolutionary changes is the use of blockchain to track every stage of the salmon's journey. From the moment the fish is harvested, its information is recorded in a secure digital ledger that can be accessed by buyers anywhere in the world. This transparency builds trust, eliminates disputes, and allows customers to trace their purchase back to the exact location and time it was caught. In a market where authenticity and freshness are paramount, this kind of verification is not just a luxury. It's becoming a necessity. Yet for all the technology, the heart of the industry remains the people. The captain who steers the well boat through a sudden squall, the processor who knows the perfect angle for the cleanest cut, the driver who navigates an icy mountain pass to make a delivery on time. These are the links in the chain that no machine can replace. Each one carries a deep understanding of the stakes and a pride in knowing that their work connects the cold, quiet waters of Puget Sound to dinner tables in cities they may never see. By the time the sun sets over the Pacific Northwest, another cycle is already in motion. The cages sway gently offshore, their silver cargo moving in lazy circles beneath the surface. The wellboats idle at their moorings, crews checking equipment for the next day's run. In the distribution centers, forklifts hum as they rearrange pallets for overnight flights. Thousands of miles away, in restaurants and markets around the world, the day's catch is being unwrapped, inspected, and prepared. The chill of Puget Sound still clinging to the flesh. From sea to city, and from city to the farthest corners of the globe, the journey continues. An unbroken thread of precision, tradition, and innovation, all flowing from a single stretch of water in Washington that has quietly become one of the beating hearts of the global seafood trade. Night in Puget Sound has a particular sound to it when the cycle is in full swing. The steady thrum of compressors from the cold rooms, the hiss of airlines pressurizing, the clatter of pallet jacks moving empty totes toward the loading docks to be filled again before dawn. Before the first wellboat noses into its berth, the transport team is already ticking through an exacting checklist. Trailers are pre-cooled to target temperature, so the walls and floor don't rob heat from the cargo. Door curtains are checked for tears that would leak cold air, and each reefer unit runs a self-diagnostic, while technicians verify the set point against calibrated handheld probes. Inside the facility, the cold chain's critical control points are rehearsed like lines in a play. Product leaves the final rinse, passes through rapid chilling, is packed in insulated crates with carefully calculated ice ratios, and is staged in a buffer room that matches the truck's temperature. A checker scans every label, confirming harvest lot, processing time, and destination before the forklift lowers the first pallet onto the trailer floor. The driver signs the temperature verification sheet, takes a photo of the data logger installed mid-load, and seals the doors. Only then does the cooling unit ramp into steady state, the white noise of its fan signaling that fragile time is again held at bay. Quality doesn't ride along by accident. It rides because dozens of small disciplines stack up. At the inspection table, a sampler lifts the lid from a randomly chosen crate and notes the firmness, color, and the clean, briny scent that signals perfect handling. A technician snaps another logger into place and scans it into the lot record, so its temperature curve will be married to the shipment forever, visible to the buyer as proof the fish never drifted out of tolerance. ADP swabs check for sanitation on contact surfaces, while spot microbiology tests track the facility's baseline, so any anomaly triggers deeper checks. Even after years of repetition, the ritual never grows casual. Everyone in the room understands that the moment warm air touches cold flesh, the clock accelerates, and the price goes the other way. What leaves the dock will cross hundreds of miles and several hands. The paperwork and the digital ledger exist so that trust can cross with it. Out on the highway, the plan is built around what can go wrong rather than what should go right. Winter can drop black ice onto the mountain passes with little warning. A windstorm can scatter debris across the viaduct. A wreck can turn a 10-minute slowdown into a 3-hour standstill. That's why dispatchers stare at large monitors that pulse with the fleet's heartbeat, watching not just the little truck icons, but the health metrics behind them. Evaporator coil temperatures, fuel levels in the reefer tanks, door open alerts that shouldn't exist once a seal is applied. If a trailer shows an unexplained temperature rise, an on-call tech meets the truck at a designated exit with a spare reefer head and a generator pack. If the route closes, drivers divert to a cold-capable crossdock where the load can be swapped to a fresh tractor, the seal documented, the chain unbroken. Drivers work inside strict hours of service rules. The plan accounts for legal rest at truck stops that offer electric standby plugs so the reefer can hum all night without burning diesel. The contingency playbook is dull by design, which is exactly why it works when the day turns wild. The cities don't wait, and neither do their clocks. Seattle's markets have first light commitments. Portland's restaurants want deliveries before prep begins, and supermarket distribution centers grade carriers on time, in full performance with penalties that bite. That pressure shapes small, unglamorous choices, whether to use flake ice or slurry to shave cooling time without adding water weight, whether to stack pallets too high in the trailer's belly and one high near the doors to avoid warm air drafts, whether to use breathable liners that let cold circulate evenly. Buyers expect a product that eats like a story, caught, handled, and moved with respect, and the only way to honor that demand is to make every handoff invisible. A warehouse crew chief signs off on each dock reading. An EDI message pings the receiver with live ETA, and a chef miles away designs tonight's special around the assumption that the fish will present exactly as promised. When the dock plate lifts and the forklift backs away, a simple exchange has been completed. Time for quality, certainty for price. Sustainability lives inside the transport chain too, not just out on the water. The reefer units that once vented hot, high GWP refrigerants now transition toward tighter systems and alternative blends that do the same job with less climate cost. Trailers idle less and plug in more. Route planning algorithms reduce empty miles, and backhauls pick up dry goods headed back toward the coast, so the return leg pays for more than fuel. Packaging inches forward as well. Stronger, lighter crates with recycled content. Ice formulas that maintain temperature with less meltwater. Returnable totes for short-haul restaurant runs that can be washed and sent back on the same truck that delivered them. Even small wins compound if 5 minutes can be saved at every dock, if 1 degree of thermal drift can be eliminated with better gaskets, if 1 out of 10 air shipments can instead make a near-market delivery by road because demand was forecast accurately, the weekly diesel bill shrinks and the footprint with it. None of it works without the people who carry the chain. Dispatchers measure their days in reroutes avoided and problems caught early. Drivers learn the character of their trailers the way a captain knows a hull. How a unit sounds when the condenser is clean versus when it needs attention, which ramps tend to collect slick frost at dawn. In the plants, the line leads can tell by touch when a fillet has dropped a half degree and needs to be moved, and the forklift operators earn a quiet pride in placing a pallet square while the digital thermometer on the column blinks a steady, satisfied number. New hires learn to breathe slowly in the cold rooms, to keep their gloves dry, to lift with the legs when a crate resists. The work is physical, but the stakes are mental. Every hand knows that a misread label, a sloppy seal, or a slow door can undo a day's precision. Demand doesn't rise evenly. It surges and collapses with holidays, trends, and weather. A chef's viral post can drain a distributor's inventory overnight. A heat wave can shift retail demand toward grilling cuts, and a storm in another region can push buyers toward the Pacific Northwest by default. The transport plan has to flex. Some days the dock runs lean, building only the committed loads for the morning. Other days it becomes a ballet of cross-docks and late-night crews building supplemental runs for customers 3 states away. Contract lanes smooth most of the bumps, but the spot market still calls when opportunity knocks. Frozen product carries the buffer, built when supply is abundant, released when fresh runs thin, to keep relationships whole. Even then, fresh is the crown, and the cold chain is the crown's guard. Metrics become a shared language. Rejection rates, dwell times, OTIF scores, cost per mile against quality index. Success looks like nothing special to an outsider. A truck that arrives when it should with fish that taste like the ocean and not the journey they took to get there. But inside the trade, it's everything. Technology keeps adding ribs to the backbone. Route engines learn from billions of miles, predicting choke points hours before they form. Telematics spot patterns a human wouldn't. How a specific trailer runs 2 degrees warmer in crosswinds and should be loaded differently. How a particular dock door tends to spike temps during the mid-afternoon sun and ought to be avoided for sensitive lots. Digital twins of the facility test what-ifs without risking product. What happens to throughput if a second quick chill tunnel comes online? How many minutes can be shaved by shifting the staging area 10 meters closer to the yard? How airflow changes if pallet spacing widens by 1 inch? Even the paperwork goes quiet. Smart seals log when a door opens and at what temperature. Bills of lading travel with a load in the cloud. And a buyer scanning a QR code at receiving can see the fish's life not in marketing copy, but in timestamps and numbers that hold up under scrutiny. The water still decides much of the tempo. A marine heat wave tightens harvest windows to keep stress low. An algal bloom forces a pause and triggers alternate pen plans. A sudden drop in oxygen pushes the well boats to deeper intake points. The transport side absorbs those shocks, sliding slots on the yard calendar, repurposing crews, and calling in extra tractors to compress a lost day into a single long night. Resilience isn't a buzzword here. It's the muscle memory of doing the right thing when the plan evaporates. Somewhere between the boat's deck lights and the highway sodium glow, the chain holds because the people at each link refuse to let it slip. By midday in the city, everything that left the Sound before sunrise is already becoming something else. In a grocery store backroom, a fishmonger breaks down a glistening side into family-size portions, while a temp log uploads to the retailer system, validating the store's promise that fresh really means fresh. In a small neighborhood bistro, a line cook salts a fillet and slides it into a pan shimmering with oil, the surface sizzling as moisture meets heat, scents of sea and toast blooming into the dining room. In a home kitchen many miles from the water, a parent unwraps a fillet from waxed paper, the flesh firm, the sheen bright, and lowers it into a skillet while a child asks where dinner came from. The answer is easy and complicated at once. It began in steel rings anchored to the bottom of a cold bay, crossed onto a boat built to move life without harming it, walked through a room where the air stings the lungs, rode in a trailer that turned mechanics into guardians of time, and arrived exactly when it was supposed to. All of that care is invisible on the plate, but you can taste it. When evening returns to Puget Sound, the compressors hum again and the well boats settle against their lines, crews checking valves and gauges while the last trucks of the day reverse into their doors. Paperwork becomes data, pallets become inventory, and the tide sets and rises beneath it all. The chain tightens for tomorrow. Another harvest is penciled, another set of routes optimized, another stack of clean crates wrapped and ready. Out beyond the breakwater, the floating cages rock in long, patient arcs, and under their shadow the silver bodies turn as one, each lap a small rehearsal for a journey they'll make only once. From sea to city and back to sea in decisions, in investments, in lives built around a rhythm older than any ledger. The transport never stops. It is the quiet engine of $1 billion promise that the distance between cold water and warm plate can be bridged by skill, vigilance, and respect, repeated faithfully until the story feels simple even though it never is.